You are now watching Bleav. Do you believe?
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Bleav in Bears. My name is Joey Christopoulos. My co-host Corey Wootton. Thank you so much for checking us out on YouTube. Comment and like below. Also on TuneIn, SiriusXM. We got a great episode coming up previewing Bears and Eagles. But first, we got to talk about our sponsor. It's BetOnline.ag, and look, it remains the #1 source throughout this football season because they've got the latest odds, matchup info, player news, and game trends. They got free contests, live scores, giveaways all season long. So what are you waiting for? Head on over to BetOnline.ag right now. You'll receive a 100% welcome bonus, ho, 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 with your first deposit. Make sure you use promo code Bleav, BLEAV, to receive that reward. BetOnline, where the game starts. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for coming into the show. It's week 15. Bears are coming off a bye. Justin Fields is sick right now as we're taping this on a Wednesday night, but we hope that he plays, and we're here to preview Bears and Eagles, and what better way to do it than with my co-host, former Bears defensive end, CHGO's very own with the swag going right now, Fox 32 Chicago's Corey Wootton. What's up, Corey?
What's up, Joey? Another week, man. The NFL football still here, so it's even though the Bears season hasn't been what we thought, it's been exciting. Having QB1 Justin Fields out there, he's been one of the bright spots for this team, and I think people are very encouraged, and I'm excited for the future in Chicago.
Yeah, the Bears are 3-10 right now, Corey. And yet, when the Bears didn't play last week, I felt like I've said this before on the show. I'm missing my favorite TV show. It was reruns week last week, and now JF1 comes back. Look, he did not practice today on a Wednesday. He was sick, but Eberflus kind of put that a little bit to rest, where he does project him to play on Sunday. They take on an Eagles team that is 12-1 right now. And Corey, as you brought it up, there's a 4-game stretch coming up for these Chicago Bears right now that, look, across from the wins and losses, because honestly, if they lose every game, they'll have the #2 pick in the draft. If they win one of the games, they're probably still top 5. But there's plenty to look forward to, Corey. So let's just start on the broad angle. Let's start with the team. You know, from the team aspect, if you're Matt Eberflus in that office right now, what do you want to see from the Chicago Bears in these final 4 games of the season?
I want to see them compete. I want to see the guys that are going to be here next year really try to get better every week. And I think that's the biggest thing, because at this point, it's really not about wins and losses. It's almost better to lose at this point. I know nobody's trying to lose, but I think that the biggest thing we want to see, right, Justin Fields continue to progress, right, and make some better decisions, towards the end of games, because in that Green Bay game, he played almost 4 really good quarters. It came down to those last 2 drives. The one throw to St. Brown, it's kind of a bad route and combination of a little bit. The second one, he kind of threw up. But up until that point, I mean, Justin Fields was pretty lights out in that game, was really efficient, running the football as well, was smart. And I think that game was great because he's nursing that shoulder, and it kind of taught him a lot about, how to not take hits, how to slide, how to be smart. And I think going forward, he's always going to be a running quarterback. But I think this is critical for him just to keep that in mind. Like, hey, I'm not trying to take all these hits. Guys like Lamar Jackson and company, they're really smart. Jalen Hurts, about how they take hits, when to get out of bounds, when to throw it away. So these last weeks, I want to see Justin Fields continue that and just be better with decision making. I think he's better as a pocket passer, but still the decisions, right? If it's not there, take it. Let's live to play another down.
Yeah, and Corey, this is a common Bears narrative, so I'm not making this up, but, in these final 4 games, there is a lot of Bears fans that feel like maybe skew away from the hybrid RPO running game just a little bit and keep, like you said, Justin Fields back there in the pocket. And, man, over these next 4 games, I would love nothing more to see him, attempt 100 to 127 passes. No matter what the game is, and you've got the Eagles, the Bills, the Lions, and the Vikings, all teams that probably should be beating these Bears during many, many quarters over the final 4 games. So, Corey, are you kind of on board with that, with Justin Fields, of just let him go back there, let him make some of those mistakes, let him make that decision with EQ St. Brown? He's got to learn from this stuff, right? And the more reps, the merrier.
Exactly. I think there should definitely be more passes out there, especially stretching the field, right? You look at in the Green Bay game, kind of, the nice shot to Harry, the nice shot to St. Brown, a couple weeks ago in the Atlanta game to David Montgomery. So when he stretches the field, he can put it right on the money. It's just about getting him confident in those situations. He's very comfortable running the football. He's very comfortable scrambling. He's very comfortable on the intermediate short throws. Now we just have to get him that confidence passing the ball in a straight drop back situation, where we need, 10 to 12 yards. We need to get the first down. So I'm for it, man. Like, there's nothing to lose at this point, and just about his development. So I understand they might be a little cautious of how they approach that, but as the game develops and things, then let's take some of these shots and continue with the narrative, right? Because my one big hang up with Luke Getsy's play calling has been, it's been really good up until we get to like that 30-yard line, and then right before the red zone, right? He gets a little tight in there with the play calling, right? We have a couple runs and all that, and I'm like, whoa, Justin Fields just completed 4 or 5 straight passes. Like, why all of a sudden are we now, taking our foot off the gas? Like, let's keep this going, right? Let's work a little play action. Let's get him on the move. Let's continue the passing game. So Luke Getsy, I challenge him these last 4 weeks to really focus on yourself, because, up until that 30-yard line, you do a pretty good job of calling, and then you get a little bit tight. So rely on the passing game. We've been very run heavy in those situations, 30 and in, red zone and in. So I want to see more passes in that, because you look at Cole Kmet, he's really come alive in some of those red zone situations where you're passing the ball. But Justin Fields, for him to continue to develop in the red zone, that's what's going to separate him. And obviously, if we can figure this out the rest of the year with the personnel we have, and then add another weapon, a better offensive line, and a defense that actually stops somebody, I think it could be a really good situation for Justin Fields and the team in general.
Corey, we spent the first month of the season talking a lot about how to get Justin Fields' confidence going in these games, start him off early, all this other kinds of stuff. And when you talk about Luke Getsy, I think that applies also for a first-year offensive coordinator. And what we saw in the beginning of the year was that they were so ineffective and so inept in the red zone. I do wonder if at times in the back of his mind, he is maybe scared to maybe draw up a call that might lead to a mistake after his young team has worked all the way into the red zone. But, Corey, we're talking about it right now. I say let it rip, man. Let's see some failures. I think you can learn and just as much from your failures as you can from your successes in these last 4 games. I definitely think you can. Corey, you did mention that you have nothing to lose. This is another big topic in Chicago Bears football fandom right now. The only thing that you can lose over these last 4 games is subjecting your possible, I think, franchise quarterback to further injury. And now, look, I'm not saying you got to sit the guy down, but I'm saying if his hamstring gets a little tight, if that shoulder takes a major hit, if there's a situation where maybe a normal NFL player would maybe gut it out and finish a game, I would be extra cautious with the guy. And Corey, my question for you is, he stays healthy these next 3 games. Would you sit him the last week against the Vikings? Because I would.
Yeah, I think in that situation,
the last one.
Yeah, I think that's the situation, because usually you would just hate it for him to be healthy up until the last game, in a game that really doesn't matter for anything. If something, God forbid, he got rolled up or something, you just want people to be healthy going in next season. It's kind of like the players in college, right? Not playing in that bowl game. It's something that didn't happen when I played. I got hurt my junior year when I was about to come out, right? Like, if sitting out was a thing, now people are like, okay, we're gonna be smart about this. We're not gonna play Justin Fields. And then in college, they're like, hey, we're not gonna risk injury. So I think it's the same thing in this situation. I think you have to be smart, because you have your franchise quarterback. I think everybody feels good about him. In the beginning of the season, I think it was a different story. But after that Patriots game and just how he's put together performance after performance, everybody feels good about Justin Fields. There's no doubt in my mind that, there might be some fans that are thinking he may not be a guy, but everybody in the front office, everybody on the team knows he's going to be legit. And I've told you, Joey, I think he could be a top 5 quarterback in this league, right? You put the weapons, a better offensive line, a defense can stop somebody. And so if it comes to that last game, I think you sit him, right? You give some other guys a chance to play and an audition. Trevor Siemian, you want to see if he's going to be the backup for next year. This is audition for you, right? You want to see some other guys at quarterback as well, right? Why not? So I think it's a situation. Last game of the season, it doesn't matter. Justin Fields is healthy going there. Sit him and let's move on to the next season. I think he showed you everything that he can do. I think he's only going to get better from this point. And you just would hate that if someone get injured in the last game of the season that mattered for nothing.
Yeah, because you're just eating into an offseason that's going to be critical for Justin Fields in this offense moving forward. Even if it's a minor injury, if he's got to rehab for 4, 5, 6 weeks, Corey, man, it's just not worth it. And a lot of people talk about can Justin Fields be a top 5 quarterback? He's a top 7 fantasy quarterback right now. And I know that doesn't mean a lot in real football, but that just gives you a taste of what his potential can be moving forward when he puts that production next to winning football games. That's when it all comes together, right?
And Joey, think about this: top 7 with an offensive line that's been shaky at times, and you look
at the first 4 games. Look at the first 4 games.
Exactly. And then you look at it. You look at his weapons at receiver, right? You can make an argument that Justin Fields is doing a lot with a little at this point, right? No offense to St. Brown at all, but coming into the season, didn't have many yards, many receptions, was a great blocker in Green Bay. But he's been our best receiver. He's been our number 1 receiver thus far, right? Claypool really hasn't come alive like we thought. Cole Kmet's been up and down. But imagine next year when we actually get another weapon, maybe potentially a true number 1. I think the sky's the limit. And this brings up the point. We have the Eagles this week, but I think the Bears, Ryan Poles and company should emulate what they're doing there, right? Similarities in quarterback, right? A mobile quarterback, Justin Fields, can run a lot faster than Jalen Hurts, but very similar, right? Jalen Hurts last year was up and down, right? What do they do? Surround them with more talent. They have a great offensive line. And then what do they have? A great defensive line as well. Great secondary, great defense in general. So they've built a lot around this team. And that's why Jalen Hurts, right? 22 touchdowns, 3 interceptions only, right? And then you look at their defense. They have 49 sacks. How many do we have, Joey? 16.
We have 16. How many did Robert Quinn have last year? More than that right now.
Exactly. And if you look at it, right, I'm looking at these stats right now, right? Roquan Smith, 2.5.
Oh, you pulled it
up? Jaquan Brisker is leading our team with 3, right?
Oh, my God.
Zach Sanborn has 2, and he's only played like the last 5 weeks, right?
Yeah.
Justin Jones, he's been a bright spot, only 2 sacks. D-tackle, I'm fine with that, right? Armon Watts, 1 sack. Dominique Robinson, 1.5 in the first game against San Francisco, right? Travis Gibson, 2, and I think that was early on in Green Bay, and I think it was within the first 4 weeks. Then we have, Quinn had 1, right, before he got traded.
Yeah.
That's it.
Holy
man.
God. Holy
That's
God.
It, right? So as a D-line, Reddick on the Eagles has 10 sacks himself. Brandon Graham has 8.5.
Yeah.
Hargrave has 8. Right? That's 3 guys right there.
Yeah, and Corey, flip it back over to the offensive side of the football when you talk about Jalen Hurts. They drafted a guy, they traded for a guy. Something that I also think that the Chicago Bears should kind of think about just real quick, because let's just play in the world that the Bears end up with the number 2 and number 3 pick in the draft, and let's say they can parlay that into future other picks, whether they're second rounders or future first rounders, whatever it is. Corey, there is a little rumor out there, would you like DeAndre Hopkins on your team? Would you like a DeAndre Hopkins on your team and you draft a guy and maybe all of a sudden you're if you have a room of Darnell Mooney, Chase Claypool, DeAndre Hopkins, drafted player XY or whatever, EQ St. Brown, and I guess you bring back Velus Jones, that's a pretty decent room all of a sudden, right? That elevates it. Would you like DeAndre Hopkins? Do you think he's too expensive? Do you think he's too old? Do you think he's still got it?
Yeah, I think he still got it. I think it's been a tough situation in Arizona. If you look on paper, they probably they've been banged up with all the receivers. They probably have the most dynamic receiving core in all of football, right? When you talk about DeAndre Hopkins, Hollywood Brown, Zach Ertz, Rondell Moore, so AJ Brown as well. So they have a lot of weapons there. They've been banged up, and I just don't think Kingsbury is getting the best out of them right now. So I think he'll probably be out after this year. But DeAndre Hopkins, I would still like if the price was right? Because I think the Bears, obviously everyone wants to win the Super Bowl next year. I don't think that's realistic. I think they could be very competitive and potentially make the playoffs. But I think it's about 2 to 3 years, right? That third year really from this point to really get to where we want to. I think year 2, that'd be great to shoot for that Super Bowl, and by year 3, we have to at this point,
Well, yeah, and a follow up on that first one, if the price is right, what do you think the price is for DeAndre Hopkins for you? That would make sense. And what would be the tipping point for it being too rich? And then another one, I don't mean to do 2 different questions, but the Eagles are kind of a year early, right? Wouldn't you say? They're that 1 year early. Last year, super competitive, feisty, frisky. That's what we want to be next year.
Oh yeah.
And then the year after,
Yeah, but I think DeAndre Hopkins, I'd want to say,
third rounder.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to. I wouldn't want to go anything above that. I wouldn't want to go anything above that, right?
Yeah. Well, you're taking the money. You're taking the money back, Arizona. So excuse me, we're not going to give you. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I think a third round is the maximum that I would give. I would lean towards a fourth because at this point, I think they're rebuilding, and especially after the season, I think they're going to clean house with the coaching staff and whatnot. And he might be released just based off everything that happened this past year, but I think he's still got it. And I would love to have him an option for at least, he's got at least 4 more good years of football left in him. So I would.
That sounds like the remainder of Justin Fields' rookie contract, Corey.
Exactly.
I think we might have a fit on our hands. Try that suit on.
So I think that's a good situation, but I don't think we should ever trade out of this first round pick we're about to get, right? Because I think it's too valuable, in my opinion.
You don't want to trade back. You want to stay where we are.
I want to stay where we are because I'm looking at 2 guys, Jalen Carter and Will Anderson, right? Because at this point, I don't think people realize how valuable these defensive linemen are, right? And 2 of those guys, right? And I'm going back and forth, Joey, because I think the 3 technique, Jalen Carter, is very critical for this Tampa too, right? That's the engine that runs this thing, right? And obviously Will Anderson is going to be a very productive, and I think he's going to get sacks, play the run. So I'm both ways, right? I'm leaning a little bit more towards Will Anderson, right? Because I think the ends can really change the game, right? I think the tackles can as well, but if you look at what do people fear a lot of times, most of the time, right? That right end on that left tackle, and I think Will Anderson, Jalen Carter is too. I mean, both of them I think are going to be perennial Pro Bowlers if they develop how we think. So I think you can't go wrong with either of them, right? You can't go wrong. But I just think we might be able to find a decent option at 3 technique, right? Like kind of like how we were looking at Larry. I don't want to butcher his last name.
Ogunjobi. Ogunjobi.
Yeah.
And now people are saying Marcus Davenport could be a guy that we're looking at in the offseason.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we got some
money
there,
right?
Yeah. But I think Marcus Davenport, he's playing right in for the Saints, only because I think Cam Jordan is more comfortable on the left side. He's been there forever. He's arguably one of the best pass rushers to come out of the Saints in their history. So I think if we got Marcus Davenport, we put him on the left side. We get Will Anderson, and then we potentially get a 3 technique, move Justin Jones to nose tackle, and then all of a sudden we're looking a lot different and then we draft a couple guys. We draft D tackle. We draft a strictly rush guy that's developmental, that can get off the ball and just give you that pass rush that you need. So then you have options there. But I think honestly the defensive line is more valuable at this point than the offensive line. I know that's going to rub people the wrong way, but Joey, 16 sacks. And about 6 or 7 of them have been from the defensive line.
It's crazy.
You can't play a football season with that. Like Aaron Rodgers on one play had 20 seconds, Joey. You can't do that in football. Like, and the secondary did a pretty good job covering with all that time. So
next time you listen to Bleav in Bears, go back and listen to my ad read at the beginning of the episode, and that's how long Aaron Rodgers has about to throw the ball.
I know. And when you see the stat line of that game, right? Aaron Rodgers 182 yards passing, you're like, oh, that's a win all day, right?
Yeah.
No, but I think the D-line is going to be a lot more critical than we think, right? Because I think Braxton Jones is our left tackle, right? I think he can. I think he needs to get stronger. I think they realize that he's played well the last couple of weeks, right? I think Tevin Jenkins is your right guard. I think some people are iffy about Lucas Patrick, but he really didn't even get a shot at center. You know what I mean? Like, so
you could still draft a developmental guy and play Patrick next year and say, you know what, our center position is coming from a steady place. And Corey, you brought up such a great point too, as well, just the familiarity with the offense and the checks as a center with Justin Fields. It's worth bringing him back next year.
Yeah. I think, especially with that, like he's familiarity with Getsy's offense and all that. I think everyone's very critical on Patrick because of what he did as a guard. He's not a guard. I don't think people realize it's like somebody going from right guard to left tackle all of a sudden. Like honestly, people were talking about putting Tevin Jenkins at left tackle, and I'm like, yo, we tried that. No, Let's leave him. He's going to be a Pro Bowler at right guard. But I promise you, if he moved to left tackle right now, he would get exposed because it's so different. Just like Lucas Patrick, right? It's such a different thing. Like literally as a center in this day and age, you're mostly a help guy. You're the quarterback of the defense. It's not like in the old days where you had a zero shade over your head where you had to road grade him out. It's not like that. It's You're helping out. You're dropping back and you're kind of helping the guard. You're seeing what up. You're making the checks. So Lucas Patrick, I think, can be fine for the center. People are just so critical about what he did at guard. Like, it's not his natural position. Like, I don't know why people don't understand
I also don't understand why, after watching Tevin Jenkins play this year, why we want him kicking his left foot out and doing the slide dance. You want him at the sound of the buzzer, popping someone. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
And getting those meat cleaver hands on somebody on the inside. And plugging up that in. So I'm on board with that. My final one before we get to keys of the game. So we had two guys go at the top of the draft last year, Hutchinson and Walker, Tavon Walker, Anderson and Carter. I know obviously different players, but just talk potential and talk talent. Is this group of two more talented than that group of two, would you say right now?
Yeah, I think so. I think
I think Will Anderson looks like.
And Jalen Carter is a different level too. I think his athleticism and the size is unbelievable. So both of them, I would feel great if we had either of those options, to be honest with you. I think it comes down to this, right? Obviously in free agency, it becomes like this. What can we get, right? Can we get a viable option at 3 technique? Okay, if we do, Will Anderson, let's go, right? And then potentially drafting somebody with our 2nd round pick as a defensive end, right? A guy that can play the left side is really good against the run, and then give you anywhere from 5 to 8 sacks, somewhere around that. Yep. So I would feel good, if we could address that 3 technique in free agency, right? If we feel comfortable about somebody, then going to Will Anderson. I think that's our pick right there. And then we solidify 2 of those spots. Like I said, Justin Jones to nose, which I think he's going to be quicker at the nose than he is for a 3 technique. That's more of a fit for him in this. And then, like I said, we draft a guy or we potentially get somebody free agency. And hey, let's see what Taco Charlton can do these last couple weeks. Former 1st round pick, right? He could be an option with some depth, and who knows? Like, there's always guys in the league, right? That get bounced around, and people think, oh, they can't play or this, and all of a sudden,
Akeem Hicks ring a bell?
Yeah. Rob Ninkovich, right? A guy like that, Jason Babin, right? Babin. Sorry for pronouncing that wrong. Guys like that, right? That are bouncing around. Oh, you're not good. And all of a sudden they have a breakout season because they're in the right system with somebody that believes in them, that use their talent in the right way. So who knows? This could be a situation. But if not, we have to address some of those needs for sure in the offseason.
Oh boy, we're gonna dive into that once the offseason begins. Trust me, buddy. Me and you talking about it. And yeah, look, on the defensive line, Bears fans, keep in mind too, I would like them to go out and maybe try and acquire not a crown jewel, but spend some significant money on somebody. But man, they need depth, is what they need. So 3 or 4 guys at $4 or $5 million a year. Package that all together. It doesn't have to be a $20 million guy to make a difference on the defensive line.
How much cap space do we have?
125 right now. And look, Bears fans, keep in mind, we are not spending all of that in one off season. All right. That is stupid. Because in my opinion, if you look, this is not the greatest free agent NFL class of all time, right? There aren't guys out there that you're going to be spending crazy money on. I think you can still improve this team greatly, spending 60 or 70 of it. Some of that dead cap money continues to kind of shed off a little bit. And you can continuously improve in the years to come and have, we can have 60, 70 million and have 60, 70 next year too as well, right? I mean, you can piece this together, and keep in mind too as well, it all comes down to the draft, right? You got to hit on the draft. You got to hit on the guy who's going to be our 1st round pick, whoever the Ravens pick is in that 2nd round, you got to hit on that guy too as well. Yep. Let's move over. Corey, typically on this show, we do Corey's keys. We're changing that. We're going to call it Corey C's. What does Corey see? What do you want to see in Week 15, Bears and Eagles? What do you want to see?
Yeah, I want to see something we talked about, the passing game with Justin Fields, right? I want to see it take the next step with Luke Getsy, right? There's nothing to lose, right? We're not playing for anything at this point. We're just playing for his development, right? Let's get Claypool involved some more, right? Let's get Harry involved. Let's get some of these guys. Let's get Cole Kmet, guys that are potentially going to be there. Harry, I think he's a talented option. I just think they haven't targeted him enough, right?
Yeah.
I think he has some value there. Another big body. It's hard to teach size. He's high ponying the ball multiple times, and it just seems like they haven't given him enough reps. So I want to see a little bit more from him. Claypool, before he got injured in this last Green Bay game, he looked really good, right? Him and Justin Fields were on the same page. We saw him go up and get it a couple times. We kind of saw some of the flashes of that dynamic player that we saw in Pittsburgh that your wife knows about, right? Your wife's a Steelers fan, terrible towels. Yeah, she knows about Claypool, but we saw glimmers of that. So I want to see that. I want to see Justin Fields get really confident in a situation where you have talented pass rushers breathing down your throat, right? And you have to stand in there at times. You got to take a hit, right? I'm hoping he doesn't take too many of them. But like in that last game to Harry, right? He was stepping up, and Dean Lowry from the Packers was about to blast him. Justin Fields knows he's going to take that hit, throws it, takes the hit, all of a sudden completes it down the field 60-something yards. So stuff like that. I want to see Justin Fields continue to develop, and especially in a good situation against a great defense and showcasing what he can do, because I think the sky is the limit for him, and it'd just be a good challenge for him. And to see, if he could really break through on this defense.
I'm going to go with Joey C's for Joey C. What I want to see in this game, and hopefully maybe in the next 4 games, is we've got Jaquan Brisker and we've got Kyler Gordon coming back to practice. I want to see those 2 guys and Jack Sanborn play, 200 reps together to wrap up this season, right? We've seen both of the guys, Gordon and Brisker, both rookies. They play them in the box a little bit. They bring them down to the line of scrimmage. I'm not saying that, it's all one thing, but these are young possible pieces that you want to move forward with in the next couple of years. So I want to see Gordon, Brisker, and Sanborn on the field together as often as we possibly can over these next 4 games. See a little bit of that speed, and just see what it looks like. You know what I mean? Learn. Go out there. We've seen each one of those players that it's mentioned make mistakes throughout this season. I'm going to throw Jalen Johnson into that boat too as well. I want Jalen Johnson to play well too, but that's something that I kind of want to see, because defensively, I've been on it for a long time, man. I've given up on this defense. You will see it reflected in my final score when we make it. So at this point, dude, I just want to see them play together. Make some plays, get some reps, and continue to get that experience.
Exactly. And one thing I want to see, Joey, is a guy that we acquired this year and he's been banged up. He had mono. Is Alex Leatherwood, right? I want to see what he can do. Former first-round pick. I want to see him at the right tackle position, right? Because I think if you feel comfortable with him and he really showcases what he can do and he's a viable option on there, you have the tackle situated, right? You have a right guard situated. I think Lucas Patrick is an option at center. Cody Way here, we might have to rework some stuff with his contract because he's been injured a little bit.
He'll do it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I think if that's the case, then you feel a lot better about what you can do with the wide receiver position, what you can do with the defensive line, what you can do with another linebacker. So then we have more money and more allocations to other positions. So I think it's critical because Alex Leatherwood was a first-round pick for a reason, right? So we got to see what he can do, right? Obviously, there was something with him and the Raiders organization where I don't know if they didn't gel. They didn't think he was a fit. But I want to see what he can do these last 4 weeks. This is an audition. There's nothing to lose, right? If he goes out there and he's putting Justin Fields at risk, then we sit him down, right? But if he's out there holding his own, I want to see what he can do. It's Leatherwood time, baby. It smells like leather.
Oh man, that slayed me. That was great. Yeah, dude, they paid millions of dollars to pick him up, right?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. So dust him off. Bring the Mahogany Man out there.
Exactly.
Corey, how ironic would it be, honestly, because they're you can take all different kinds of stats out there that you want to, and I think a lot of this is the Justin Fields effect. But the Bears, according to Pro Football Focus, their offensive line, it actually has kind of creeped into the top half of the NFL. After starting off as the worst unit in the NFL. And how ironic would it be if we actually discovered some answers without maybe necessarily drafting and starting 2 rookies on the offensive line next year? How crazy would that be? I still think we need to draft offensive line. I would say, look into free agency, see if we can get a good deal somewhere. But how funny would that be if it was Braxton Jones, Whitehair, Patrick Jenkins, Leatherwood to kick off week 1 next year. That'd be so strange.
I think that'd be great. And I think it'd be a good situation for, like I said, everything that we need and just having it. And I think the offensive line in general played poorly, right? Because it was a reflection. Justin Fields early on was holding the ball a little too long, right? Like, to be honest, like he was not getting the ball out quick. There was a couple times where the offensive lineman got beat, but I think Justin Fields, his clock in his head, he just didn't have that 1, 2, 3. Okay, let me tuck it and go, or let me get this ball completed, right? And I think has so much better awareness when it comes down to time. Okay, what the pocket's doing, what I can do, whether I scramble or not, whether I'm going to complete it down the field. It's night and day difference, right? And it's going to only continue to get better. And I think everybody wants him to throw for 400 yards and all this. And listen, I don't know if he'll ever be that type of quarterback, to be honest with you. I don't think so. I think he'll be, maybe at the top of his game in the 300s, but I don't think he's going to be consistently a 400-yard Justin Herbert, Joe Burrows. That's not who he is. He's going to be very similar to Jalen Hurts, but I think he could be even better than that, right? Because I think he's a better passer, right? And Jalen Hurts has figured things. This is no disrespect to him, but I think Justin Fields, when he's confident and you see some of the throws from him, you're like, oh my goodness, he has a different level on his arm strength that Jalen Hurts doesn't have, right? And no disrespect to him at all, right? And Justin Fields, what he can do running the football. I honestly think the sky is the limit for this dude. I love his toughness. I love how he's such a leader out there. I'm just really excited about the future with him. I said it from the beginning. It's critical to game plan of what he does well. When Getsy did that, it was the game changer, right? We saw the Justin Fields that we all thought he could be, right? And this is a small sample size, Joey. So that's why the Bears fans, I'm saying, just imagine when we get everything figured out with the offensive line and we get another weapon, a dynamic guy that when the game's on the line, he's going to go up and get it. You can rely on him. Your Keenan Allen, your DeAndre Hopkins, right? Guys like that. That's what, you look at that game with Justin Herbert, right? Keenan Allen was his go-to guy. He's reliable. He knows where he's going to be. He goes up and make plays for him. We don't have that receiver right now. Next year, I think we will have that.
So Corey, I completely agree with you. We walked in this season and we've said it on this pod that, we wanted to see X amount of games where Justin Fields gave you that opportunity to dream and hope. And I think he's completely delivered on that. And dare I say, I think he's kind of maybe exceeded the expectation of what I think he could possibly have potential-wise moving forward. Of course, he's got a long way to go, but I mean, I'm super excited about his future. You talked about a dynamic receiver, Corey. Can we talk about Velus Jones just real quick? He's got 3 receptions heading into the final 4 games. He was a 3rd-round pick. Let's just keep it simple, man. 3 receptions on the season. Over under 3.5 more receptions this year for Velus Jones, the rookie.
I'm going to say under.
Me too.
I just, for some reason, I just feel like they don't trust him as a wide receiver. And I don't know. I feel like they were high on him early, and then when he fumbled those punt returns, I feel like they've just been done with him. That's what it seems like, to be honest.
So
and my thing is
Corey, really, really quick, Corey, just on that point, real fast. You got to produce, right? And when you fumble in the NFL, right, that is the scarlet letter, especially with a football team and a head coaching staff. But man, this is your rookie, right? Like
3rd rounder too, not a 5th, not a 6th, not a 7th, not undrafted, a 3rd rounder.
So what I mean, man, did the Bears do the right thing confidence wise? I mean, tell me where I'm right and tell me where I'm wrong on this one. Where you can't fumble in the NFL, I totally get it, but man, it just seems like the dude's confidence is just gone. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the coaching staff played a little bit of part in that. I don't know.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's just tough, right? Because in a situation, usually, if a guy like David Montgomery fumbled a few times, I think he would get the benefit of the doubt, right? But when you're a rookie and you're trying to get the confidence up, if you have a fumble here or there, it's a real big deal. So I think the way they've handled it is like, I understand, you had to remove him from punt return because you had to put Pettis on there because you felt more comfortable at ball security. Okay. But why haven't we used him more in the passing game, right? Like, it's not like we have, the most talented wide receiver core. So why not give your 3rd rounder that you were saying how much of a dynamic playmaker he is? And he's flashed that at times. His speed, I know he dropped that one in, I think it was the Vikings game early on in the season. Yeah. But he has the speed. He has everything that you need. Why not get him involved more?
End arounds, wide receiver
Anything.
screens. I mean,
Yeah.
there's a lot of really quick. They love that bubble screen. They love that hike the ball and just throw it right to the wide receiver behind the line of scrimmage. Why can't he do that? Yeah, no, it's kind of turning into a sad story, and I want to at least root for the guy because one, I'm a Bears fan. I don't want to see a 3rd-round pick go to waste, and 2, you just don't want to see a player's career just be, the water on the fire of a player's career that quickly. It's just really kind of tough to see. So I'm with you on the under, but I'm definitely rooting for the over. Corey, we got to get to it, man. Final score, Week 15. Eagles Bears. It gonna get ugly. What's your final score, dude? What's your number?
Oh man, I'm gonna say 45-28 Bears.
Yeah, baby.
No, Bears not winning. Sorry,
Yeah, no.
Eagles.
No, I know, but 45. Holy cow.
Yeah, I mean, look what they did to the Giants, right? And
Yeah.
the Giants, I think, are a better team defensively than the Bears. I think the Eagles are hitting their stride, and I think these last couple weeks before they start to rest their starters, I think the last 2 weeks they might, depending on how everything shakes out, because they seem like they're head and shoulders above everybody. I'm trying to think. The only team maybe is the Vikings, right? That could potentially chase them depending on wins and losses.
Just wins and yeah.
But I think they're up 2 on them, right? I Bleav.
And Dallas is like an outside shot, but I don't think they lost the head-to-head, and yeah, it's tough.
Yeah, so I think these next 2 weeks for them is like critical dress rehearsal, like we're getting ready for the playoffs because, especially the last 2 weeks, they might play them a quarter or 2, get them ironed out, and especially that last week, they're going to sit them completely, I think, for sure. Unless, they could potentially play them a series or 2 like the preseason, just to keep them sharp because they're going to have that bye week. But yeah, I think they're going to try to exert their will and power over the Bears, and I worry about this, right? And not so much about the passing game. I worry about Miles Sanders and Jalen Hurts running the football because our rush defense has been poor, and they love those outside zone runs, right? And they have arguably one of the best offensive lines from left tackle to right tackle in the game. So I'm very nervous about this, and that's why I think it's going to be a blowout. I think Justin Fields will have his splash plays, and he'll make some things happen, scrambling, running, what he can do. But I think the defense just is not going to be able to stop Jalen Hurts and company and that powerful offense.
Yeah, Corey, the Eagles last week had 253 team rushing yards. So just think about that, Bears D and Bears fans moving into Sunday. I'm with you, man. I think the Eagles are going to want this game, man. If they get to 13 wins, I mean, 14 is going to do it. But if they get to 13, man, that 1 seed, it's pretty much theirs, right? So they can take care of biz this week. I'm going 38-27. Eagles win. The only reason why I'm going an under a lower number is I think that this is going to look a lot like the Cowboys game, in my opinion, where I think Justin Fields. I just think Justin Fields will play well, but again, I mean, I texted your guy Mark Carman this before games, over under punts in a game. I don't know. Will the Eagles punt in the first half of this game? I honestly don't see it. So it could very easily be a 21-3, 21-7 by the middle of the second quarter. It could extend that lead to even a little bit farther. And I think 38-27 because I do think the Bears can maybe score, kind of a touchdown a little bit late. I don't know what the spread is. I think the spread is 9 right now. So I'm saying that the Eagles cover that right at this point. And I mean, it's going to be tough. Again, we're going to be looking for the instructive lessons inside of the game and maybe not necessarily the end result of this particular matchup against a 12-1 Eagles team and a 3-10 Bears team.
So, Joey, you think the Eagles win it all this year, or you think they're in the Super Bowl?
So here's the thing is I was doubting the Eagles for a long stretch of time in the beginning of the season when they were undefeated, right? I'm like, they're going to lose at some point. I thought they really struggled where they'd play like 2 quarters with their hair on fire and then kind of fall off the map. They let that Texans game on Thursday night. But what I've kind of learned about this team and what's impressed me about them is, they're either getting it done or they're kicking your ass. There's really one of 2 things, right? And so my question is, I'll tell you, I think the Cowboys and 49ers are going to be great competition. I actually really like the Cowboys a lot this year. I mean, they don't do anything. Their defense is elite. Offensively, they don't really do anything special, but they have complementary pieces. Good tight end, solid quarterback, great running back duo. And for the first time ever, Dak Prescott doesn't have to be a franchise quarterback that carries his team right now. So I actually like the Cowboys a lot. Yeah. But, man, it's hard to go against the Eagles. If we're talking Super Bowl, I'll be honest with you, man, I can't not say no to Patrick Mahomes. And I think if Joe Burrow went up against the Eagles, I would like his shot as well at that. But, I mean, Eagles got a great chance at it, man. And I'm not saying like this is. I'm not saying this is. I'm not trusting Jalen Hurts. I think Jalen Hurts has played great at an elite level, but man, they got a great shot at it, man. What say you?
Yeah. No, I think they're like you said, them and the Cowboys in the NFC are my two teams just because of how dominant their defensive lines are, right?
Yep.
And I think Philly has the edge just based off how they score points and they limit their turnovers offensively, right? Dak at times has turned the ball over a little bit too much, right? Jalen Hurts only has 3 interceptions this year. Miles Sanders is absolutely a beast in there, has over 1,000 already. And their defensive line, Joey, I mean, like you got a 3 technique in Hargrave, like it would – if we could get a guy like that, oh my goodness, like 8 sacks in there, that gives you everything you need. Reddick in there that has 10 sacks. Brandon Graham, all the literally they've just said they got Ndamukong Suh, Linval Joseph. They got all these guys. They are putting the arsenal together to stop the run and be able to get after you. So that's why they have the edge, in my opinion. Just because when you have such a dominant defense, it takes the pressure off a guy like Jalen Hurts. And I had the Chiefs winning it all, right? I think the way they're playing right now with Patrick Mahomes, I think the Eagles are the only team, in my opinion, that are playing the most complete football in the NFL right now, besides arguably the Lions right now. But I think it's too late for what. And I don't think they have enough firepower defensively.
Yeah, no, and look, what do we talk about every single year? We talk about receivers and quarterbacks and offense over and over and over again. And Corey, your account is the defensive side, which is so refreshing because what happens by the time we get to the Super Bowl, dude? We talk about quarterbacks, but the real people that know the game, they always talk about the defensive line, right? And so what I'm hearing you're saying is that you think the Eagles' defensive line has the best shot at stopping a Patrick Mahomes, at stopping a Joe Burrow. And, man, that's really what it ends up coming down to, right? The 49ers almost beat Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl because their defensive line was so good. Exactly. The Bengals lost the Super Bowl last year because their offensive line wasn't very good. Yeah. It isn't sexy, Bears fans, but that's what it always ends up coming down to when you get to the Super Bowl. And we can talk A.J. Brown and all that stuff all we want, but that's what's
defense
the separator.
Win championships, man. Giants are the Brady Killers, 07-11. You look at Von Miller, what he did against Cam Newton in them. He single-handedly took over that game. You look at when
the Broncos, dude, when the Broncos won, look at the guys they had on that team with Von Miller and the Danny Trevathan that got the big money from, you know what I mean? They still had a great defense too.
And then when Seattle beat Denver that one year, right? Yep. Then they got after him with the pass rush. Cliff Averill and company. Yeah, so I just think the defense is so critical for a team's. So there's very few teams that can carry you offensively, right? Kansas City is that team, right? They're like the Colts when they had Peyton Manning. But other than that, there's not many teams that your offense can just carry you. You have to have a strong defense. So, I think it's going to be interesting. At first I thought Kansas City had a clear shot. They're going to win this all. But, I think Eagles and the Cowboys are going to give them a challenge, whoever's in that AFC.
No, I'm a big believer. We've seen a lot of teams that go 14, 15-1, and this year obviously was 17 games. But the Eagles, man, I'm convinced, man, just especially the way that now that they're – the way that they're playing football right now, they're playing at the right time.
You know who I'm not a believer of? The Vikings. I don't believe in them. I don't.
No kidding. No kidding, dude. So, first of all, just really quick, the quarterback is not having a special season, right? And when I'm looking at this game, especially if you guys play a confidence pool out there, if you play fantasy football, I mean, the only reason I feel like that the Vikings are in this thing is because half the games, Justin Jefferson is the best player on the field. And I know that's a wide receiver that sounds pretty crazy, but if you look at the type of season that he's having, and when a guy puts up crazy numbers like he does, sometimes that is that edge. And, man, the way that the Bears played the Vikings this year is the way that the Vikings have played everyone all season long, right? Super close, a couple plays here and there, and more often than not, the opponent screws up, and the Vikings benefit. And I think
they're not dominant.
Yeah, to quote Donnie Brasco, they're a fugazi. They're a fugazi, exactly. Corey.
I don't believe in them. They have this same thing a couple years ago when they had the defense ironed out and all this, and they're competitors, and then all of a sudden they were 7-1 and then lost all these games in a row. So I'm not buying it. I'm not buying it at all. So a lot of people are talking, oh, Minnesota's. Nah, watch. They're going to be one and done. I promise you that. Like they just can't do it.
No, I take that all day long, and they're going to be home for a playoff game. They've been home a lot. They were underdogs against the Lions last week, man. I mean, that should let you know everything that you need to know about the Vikings, despite their record going on. Corey, we got to get out of here, man. This was the Week 15 Eagles and Bears preview. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for listening on TuneIn, on SiriusXM, Apple Podcasts. Thanks for watching on YouTube. Comment and question below. Today's episode was presented by BetOnline.ag. Fa-la-la-la-la, 100% welcome bonus when you use promo code Bleav, B-L-E-A-V. You can't beat it anywhere else. Buy it for your friend, or you know what? Buy it just for yourself in the holidays. Thank you so much for tuning in. Come on in next week. We're going to do Corey's Christmas list. That's right. Corey's going to make Christmas list. It's going to be a new driver, a 60-degree wedge, and maybe a couple of players that he wants the Chicago Bears to target moving forward.
Let's go.
Heading into the new year, man. Corey, great to see you, my friend. Have a great week. We'll talk to you. We'll talk to you soon, man. Take us home.
All right, my man. Yeah, another great pod, man. It's been an up and down season, but I think we're excited about the future for this team. Justin Fields. And we just have to have faith in Ryan Poles and what he's going to do in the offseason, right? Because I think this is going to be critical. I told you, we cannot fully evaluate him until after what he does in free agency and with the draft, right? And then the trajectory of this next season, right? It's all about rebuilding. It's about making a push for the playoffs next year, and then that following year to be a competitor, in that playoff run to try to get to the Super Bowl. So it's a process. And we just have to trust his process. And I know Bears fans are impatient. They want the Super Bowl right now. But Rome wasn't built overnight, just like the 85 Bears were, right? It was a process, right? And we're hoping that maybe this 2024 Bears team, maybe will be the team that goes to the Super Bowl and wins it all, right? We just have to trust the process. So, yeah, we'll be breaking down this Eagles. Hopefully it's not too crazy of a loss for the Bears. And who knows? Maybe I don't want them to win because then it affects the draft position. So we don't want any of that. But yeah, we'll break it down for you guys. And as in the offseason, we'll talk about the free agents and targets and kind of like you said, our wish lists for Christmas for the Bears roster for next year. We'll talk about that. So yeah, we'll be back next week.
Be well, be safe. Please be good to each other. Happy holidays. Bear down. And Corey, what's that smell? Is that Leatherwood?
Leatherwood time. It's that fragrance that you get, right? Oh, okay.
It's a woodland musk.
That's what we need, baby.
Let's go. Thank you for watching Bleav. You can find more great content at Bleav.com. That's BLEAV.com. Do you believe?